Hello everyone and welcome to another webinar Wednesday from the DTOS News Desk. My name is Mark Morell and I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at the DTOS Group and I'll be your host for the session. Before we get into our webinar, we have a few notes regarding the session ahead. Please send through your comments. We love hearing from you, our audience, and hello to all of you around the world. Thank you so much for joining us. But feel free to put some comments now. I can actually see all the comments that come through, so give us a wave and we'd love to hear from you. There will be a short Q&A session at the end. It is curated, so we'll do our best to answer all the questions. For all the questions that we don't get to answer, we will be posting that on our social media channel, so look out for our answers in the social media channel. We also need to note that the session is recorded and will be available on YouTube at a later stage. And if for any reason you experience any lag on Demio at the moment, you can jump onto our Facebook page. We will be streaming it live there. Right, so Mauritius has positioned itself as the gateway into Africa for investment and long been the playground for Europe and the UK. As the world moves into a new era of blending work and personal life, we are seeing a lot of movement globally, which begs the question, why Mauritius? So why choose Mauritius to live, work and invest? Let's find out together. With me today to help bring clarity around this topic from Intertrust, or one of the largest global management companies, we have Kelly Joritsma, the head of China Desk for Europe. How's it? Great. From PwC and partner and the head of tax services, we have Durant Puhulu.
Hi.
Great. And from the EDB, joining us today, Director of Global Outreach, Vinay Gudai. And from the DTOS Group, Head of Business Development, Xavier Lages. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. Great, let's get into it. Kelly, which European countries are most attracted to Mauritius and what are some of the reasons people look to Mauritius as opposed to other destinations?
Thank you, Mark, for having me today here. So UK and France have been working together with Mauritius for very long time for multiple reasons. Number one, they have exposure in Africa for investment, and Mauritius has been a safe harbor and the gateway to Africa. So people here speak English and French, which is a great ideal for services. We have 2-hour time difference, which makes no delay for communication. Yep. Plus, you have the beautiful beach and the perfect weather. When we have -3 degrees in Europe, you have 25 plus beautiful sunshine. So absolutely, that is an attracting place for live and business in Mauritius for European investors.
Awesome. Xavier, over to you. Mauritius has a solid reputation for ease of doing business. What do you think are the contributing factors to this? What makes Mauritius so attractive?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think we could answer this question in various ways. I would point out 4 items which I think might be relevant to understand why Mauritius is classified as ease of doing business. For me, the first point would be is definitely the security. And security, I mean security at all levels. No country, to my opinion, would ever attract any foreign capital if the basic level of security is not guaranteed. Yeah. From this point of view, Mauritius has been unique in Africa, we must say. We have been independent for more than 50 years now, and despite several challenges, Mauritius has remained a calm, quiet and safe place to live. And security in the end, I would say, drive confidence, and confidence drive capital flows. So I think this is maybe the core point that I would wanted to point out. The second thing is obviously over the years the international recognitions. We have been, I wanted to remind here that Mauritius was classified 49th in the Ease of Doing Business Index of the World Bank in 2017, and it has improved to the 13th place in 2020. So it's a major move forward on this index. Obviously, those international acclaims, like the World Bank one, are comforting for us and shows that we are moving as a country in the right direction. And but those classifications have their limits, and I think we should also have a look at reality. So, which brings me to my third point, which is the reality check or reality test. over the past decades, Mauritius has been one of the top economic performance in Africa. We have been able to diversify our economy, and the real output growth has averaged around 5% per year. The real per capita income has increased around 75% over the, I think, 20 past years, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, most importantly, to my opinion, is that social conditions have also improved. We still have challenges, but globally, social conditions have improved in Mauritius. So this can be explained by a mix of good governance, highly educated population, and also a constant drive to progress towards professionalism in a global economy. We'll probably come back to this a little bit later on. But those elements are very important. The third point I wanted to point out, to put forward, is the fact that we as a country, we do have strong regional relationship. DITOS, as a leading management company, is very much looking beyond Mauritian boundaries, obviously. Yeah. And the Mauritian financial sector globally has been a big support for Indian investment in the first place. And this was basically how the global business has started in Mauritius like 30 years ago. And more recently, we've been looking into mainland Africa. So our country has built a strong network of treaties and is present in various associations, SADC, COMESA, and federation that keeps the country in the know for investors coming in and for those investing out of Africa. So ease of doing business, I would say, is a continuous journey on which the country has been working relentlessly for almost 3 decades now. I would say that ease of doing business is mainly based on what we can do for investors as a country, how we can comply obviously to international regulation, and obviously how we can efficiently deliver to our clients. So for me, this is also very, very important, the capacity to nurture and to build the regional relationship. And that's what I could say to highlight why we are considered as ease of doing business in Mauritius, which are real elements.
Well, that's certainly attractive, so thank you, Xavier. Dieren, we know that Mauritius is famous for the 315s, namely 15% for income tax, 15% for corporate tax, and obviously 15% for VAT. When it comes to investment, what are some of the tax holidays European investors can take advantage of, and what are their conditions?
Thank you, Mark. And before answering that question, I would just bounce back to whatever Xavier said. Yeah. And I think it is worth mentioning that Mauritius has a very sophisticated tax authority, which has virtually gone electronic. So this is a massive achievement, and that actually adds to the ease of doing business, right? Now, coming to your question around the 315, I think indeed we have the Mauritius is very famous for the 315, and but having said that, we have a very simplified tax system, be it VAT, corporate tax, income tax, and all the taxes that we have, very user-friendly in terms of the tax authority. And having said that, I think what is worth mentioning is that the government of Mauritius has not really slept in terms of providing a tax incentive, right? And as opportunity arises in terms of a business, there are tax incentives that actually follows. And there is a bunch of tax incentive, tax holidays that has been introduced by the government of Mauritius. Just to name a few, we have the headquarter license. If you have a headquarter license, the income is, you have a holiday of 8 years. Investment, treasury activities as well, you have a tax holiday of 5 years. And from the, perhaps just to elaborate further on the financial services, we have captive insurance. We have a tax holiday of, mind you, 10 years. So that's a massive number in terms of tax exemption. And Mauritius has also been very compliant on the international arena. It is BEPS compliant, and it is engaging fully with the OECD and the EU to really make the framework work for all the investors. It's not like Mauritius is selling something that is not compliant, either with the OECD, from the OECD perspective, or the EU, where eventually the investor would have problems. And if you look at all the incentive that has been provided, all the holidays, tax holidays, these are tagged with compliance and substance requirement, which is one of the fundamental of the OECD, right? So, of course, we're going to have more time to talk about this, but I think fundamentally what we need to retain is Mauritius has a very simplified, compliant, and a system that is in line with international norm. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, certainly Mauritius is targeting certain industries to attract them into the country, which is great. It means we've got vision for where we want to go. So, Vinay, the regulatory framework has recently evolved for special purpose vehicles, virtual assets, and for the variable capital companies. The jurisdiction is hoping to attract new investors and position itself as a prominent platform for investment mainly into Africa. How do you see this having a positive impact on the structuring of funds in Mauritius?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for this opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I mean, already if you look at currently, there are 1,000 funds already domiciled in Mauritius. So we've been doing well already. Mauritius has a significant sort of trust and visibility in the regional market. And also a recent study by the EDB through the support of international economics have shown that we have shifted, as Xavier has mentioned earlier, we have shifted our priorities from India to now mainland Africa, where 9% of total investment into the continent has been structured for the Mauritius International Financial Center. So we shouldn't also forget that in sub-Saharan Africa, Mauritius is the only IFC that is rated as an investment grade jurisdiction by Moody's at the same time. So coming to the virtual assets, for example, in February 2022, the Virtual Asset Investment Token Offerings VITOS Act was promulgated. That will allow, going forward, companies to tokenize projects, not just in Mauritius, but across the continent, and raise funds through the Mauritius International Financial Center, and then move forward and then really engage into more innovative, new startup companies, for example, could really look at developing their structure, the new product developments for the African continent through the Mauritius International Financial Center. So certainly that bodes well in attracting more companies into our jurisdiction.
Absolutely. Darren, anything you want to comment on that, or?
No, I think that actually confirms the speed with which Mauritius has actually enacted this virtual asset is an example, is in fact a clear example of how Mauritius is very reactive very quickly to enact something that is working worldwide and trying to attract that investment in Mauritius. Yeah.
That's great. So the amended income tax regulations for 2022 have come into play, which highlights some fiscal advantages for e-commerce platforms, investment dealer license, and specialized software systems. What are some of the considerations? What are the considerations subject to, and what are the outcomes?
Yeah, again, I think that actually goes in line with the trend that we have worldwide, and we have a tax holiday of just 5 years in terms of e-commerce. If you have a company which is operating an e-commerce platform, you have a tax holiday of 5 years. And as I mentioned earlier, this actually comes with all the substance that you need to put in Mauritius. So what we're trying to attract is real business in Mauritius. It's not like you have a tick the box in Mauritius, you have a company, you set up a company, and eventually nothing is being done. But it's really substance activities, and which is helping Mauritius to really get out of as an IFC in the region and perhaps in the world. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Kelly, do you think those regulatory evolutions will make Mauritius favorable over other jurisdictions for investment funds?
Absolutely, yes. We embrace regulations because it provides protection for the investors. It's very much focusing on the investor protection. As earlier Xavier was mentioning, security is very important. Security for the investment, security of the business, and also a regulated marketplace. So it's a fair playground for everyone, and the stability. That's very important to attract investors, European investors, to come into a new territory. So we can absolutely relate to that. Furthermore, I would like to, relate to what Vine was saying, that the approachability of the regulators is very important as well. The speed of act and respond to new requests, new demand, and then open for discussion and working along with industry. That's the role of regulators, and then that's very positive for the investors as well.
Great, thank you. Before we get into the next couple of questions, I'd just like to say we are going to do a Q&A session at the end. It will be curated. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer, then please feel free to put it in the comment section in the body below. Thank you. All right, so Xavier, back to you. The controversial EU blacklist, now that Mauritius is no longer on the EU blacklist, as you've mentioned earlier, has the global business sector returned to normal? And what are some of the changes we're seeing in the industry, if any?
Yes, I think this is an important question. Thank you. First, I would like, before answering your question around what are the changes, I would like to take stock of where we are now. So the first thing I would say is that this EU blacklist classification for Mauritius has been a wake-up call for the financial sector. I think it was unfortunately due to happen because jurisdictions around the world were upgrading their regulatory best practices, and those practices any day would have forced a country like Mauritius to get into shape for EU compliance. So this was a wake-up call, and now we are out of this list and we are growing as a springboard into mainland Africa with added serenity, and this is reassuring. The second thing to take stock of where we are is that we do have a strong financial ecosystem, and we have, obviously, we've already said this, but quickly, we've obviously a very strong banking system. We have Mauritian investment grade bank. We are as a jurisdiction, I just said this, we are investment grade country. We have one of the most advanced stock exchange in the region as well. And we obviously have an ecosystem which has been tested for funds over, again, the past decades. We have also been upgrading our legal framework. The VCC is a very good example. And we are getting more and more prepared to become, hopefully, a fintech hub. And I think we have a lot of ingredients to become, to have extraordinary opportunity for investors to position themselves strategically in Mauritius. Now, this is where I think we are today.
Sure.
And now I would say, if we need to look forward, I think, this is my personal opinion, but I think it's shared by many, is that our destiny as a financial sector is very much tied to Africa. Thus, we do think that the potential which lies ahead is loaded with opportunities. We have serenity, we have countrywide facilities, and we are still, I think, a step ahead in the whole of Africa. So our jurisdiction, nevertheless, remains quite affordable for Europeans. If we compare, for example, with Luxembourg, we are much more affordable than Luxembourg, and so we are very attractive from this point of view. And I think we want to propose, this is what we want to do, to propose world-class and stay here, yet affordable for living and doing business in Mauritius.
Yeah.
And if you allow me, I would like to finish with maybe the two major things that would be, to my opinion, the challenges ahead for us. For me, I've been recently traveling and I realized that for some kind of investors, they are still very reluctant, but reluctant to put the money in Mauritius. There can be many reasons for that. There can be another webinar to explain this. I think there's a will also to retain the money in Europe. So there's a kind of reluctancy to let the money come to Mauritius. I think this is there is a distortion in perception, which does not correspond to reality, unfortunately. And I think we need to, as a country, to continue to influence globally the investors globally around the fact that Mauritius has made significant progress, and so we need to convince them, investors, DFIs, fund community at large, that Mauritius is and will remain a very relevant and strategic jurisdiction. And one last point for me, which also seems very important, I've seen recently a very strong trend in Europe and also in US concerning the impact investing. And I think we as a country also need to become a model to follow for impact investment and align on EU trend, which is really strongly building up. And I think this is a strong challenge ahead and can also be a strong opportunity for us ahead.
So basically educating the marketplace about the fact that it is safe to put your funds in Mauritius, and as well as impact investment. I'd like to open that question up to the rest of the panels, if you don't mind. Vinay, how do you see the financial sector growing in the future, and what are some of the challenges? If you want to echo anything that Xavier said.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think on the table we'll talk at length about challenges and opportunities. I'd just like to just quickly glance over why the IFC and why Africa. If you look at Africa, it's the fastest growing demography in the world. 1.4 billion people will reach 2.5 billion people by 2050. 17% of the world population right now. Africa is home to 30% of the global minerals reserves. We're talking about uranium, gold, diamond, oil and gas, whatever. And it also has currently 60% of the untapped arable land in the world. And when you look at the FAO saying that by 2050 we need to increase food production by 50%, you can imagine the bulk of that will have to come from Africa. Yeah. So having such a lot of resources and ability, yet you mentioned the free 15s earlier. I'm going to talk about the free freeze of Africa. Africa only commands less than 3% of FDI. Global flow FDI only less than 3%. Total trade less than 3%. So if you look at the continent, there's total imbalance. 17% of the world population, 30% of global mineral reserves, and you're talking about 60% of untapped arable land, but contributing to less than 3% of FDI, less than 3% of trade. That imbalance will change. There should be a shift that's happening. And you will see recently IMF said that Africa is where China was 30 years ago and where India was 20 years ago. What it means, huge opportunities and a fast-growing population. And these are perfect mix to tell you that if you invest in Africa, you're going to get rapid returns. And that's where Mauritius is positioning itself, because there's no international financial center in the world that is actively promoting funds to the African continent. If you look at Asia, they have Singapore, they got Hong Kong, they got Shanghai. Middle East, they got Abu Dhabi. If you look at Europe, they got Frankfurt, they got Paris, they got London, and New York for the Americas. But Africa, there's no financial center promoting funds to the African continent. And that's where Mauritius is positioning itself. And that's where you see the continuous re-engineering of the financial center in Mauritius. And that's why the Vitus Act was promulgated in 2002, to give more opportunities for companies to come to Mauritius. Going forward, we need to build on the excellent work that we have done. For example, if you look at arbitration, mediation that's being done in Mauritius for structuring your investment on the African continent, that could be promoted and built around that, another ecosystem that will make the financial jurisdiction of Mauritius more important, more attractive to international operators.
That's fantastic. Darren, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think, we are talking fiscal, right, taxation, but I'm going to just tag it with all the concept of ease of doing business. And perhaps from a fiscal perspective, I have to mention that there is a lot of certainty in the fiscal system that we have. All the rulings that the tax authority, the MRA, issues is published, so it's basically everyone can have access to that. Xavier mentioned around the treaties, the tax treaties, and Mauritius, the tax authorities in Mauritius adhere to the provisions of the tax treaties. And in terms of the legal system, and when you're talking to, and I believe this is true for all the type of litigation, for fiscal litigation, the ultimate court of law, court would be the Privy Council. So it's really something that is there. There is no, I would say, imposing something that is very unique to Mauritius. You have an openness going outside Mauritius to have arbitration, have litigation resolved. So these are things that really promotes Mauritius as a jurisdiction for doing business, good business, and where you have a lot of certainty. Mark, you mentioned around the investment dealer license, and this piece of legislation is there for, I would say, perhaps a couple of months. And recently, the government, the tax authorities came with regulation just to provide certainty of what is in there and what is required for you to have the 80% partial exemption out of the income that you're making. So we have a properly designed and certain framework to ease the life of investors in Mauritius. Yeah.
Great. Kelly? Anything you want to add?
Yes, actually, I think, coming from the European perspective, I think there's a huge information gap because, as a personal experience, before I came over here, there was, and also in conversation with many of our clients and then the European investors, everyone agreed Africa has huge potential. How to invest in it, and then it's a totally different marketplace. It has different rules. It's a different game playground, and for many European investors, they didn't know how. So I do believe that Mauritius is playing a very important role promoting and bridging the gap in between, and then educating and just improving the communication so that for European investors they feel safe and sound, and then they feel confident coming into this new market and benefit from the rapid growth, and at the same time attracting more of them coming over here and physically be here, and I think that's very helpful as well. So information gap, yes.
Information gap. Anyone want to add to that comment, or we're all right?
Agree.
Correct. We agree. We agree. All right, so we've got a few questions that have come through. I just want to pull it up here. Okay, it's not really 100% relevant to our topic today, but Jenny J has asked, in South Africa, businesses are being negatively affected by power outages. Please, can you explain where Mauritius power comes from, and are there any threats to future power on the island? I mean, this... Yeah,
I mean, I'll give it my best shot. When it comes to power management in Mauritius, I think we've been doing quite well. I mean, if you look since independence, we hardly ever experienced shortage of power supply to Mauritius. And currently, our demand is at around 430 megawatt, if you look at it, and the supply capacity is close to 600 megawatt. And there are numerous projects coming as we're trying to shift from fossil fuel to sustainable energy as well. So there are numerous projects coming on wind energy, solar energy, and different types of solar farms and different types of energy generation are coming onto the island. So we should get another 60 to 80 megawatt production coming within the next 12 months. So when it comes to power generation, we have we have excellent reliability in Mauritius. Hardly, if we do have some experience, some blackout, it's not because of power supply. It's mainly because we have a major cyclone that has damaged the grid on the island, and that's an experience for people to come and experience a cyclone to Mauritius as well, tropical cyclone. And but the grid is excellent, well maintained by the Central Electricity Board. So when it comes to power, not an issue. When it comes to water as well, not an issue. I recently just did a survey for a company that told me that they will need 70 million meter cube of water for their operation, and we did that, and it was well within the margins that we could allow as well. So coming to water and power supply for the island, we quite covered there.
If I may add, again, from an outsider point of view, it's very intrigued by learning that about the sugarcane power generation, and then so that talking about impact investing, clean energy, sustainable energy, Mauritius has already been, setting a very great example, benefiting, reusing the materials, the resources that you have here, and then creating clean energy, which I honestly have not heard about anywhere else, producing electricity using sugarcane. So very impressive again.
Yeah, no, I think we're definitely incentivized, just speaking from as a normal person, not from a business, but we're definitely incentivized to try and move into sort of green or solar energy supply, which is great, because I think we're very definitely on the forefront of that. Another question from Feroz. With DIFC and GIFT City gaining popularity, does Mauritius lose its competitiveness? Who would like to answer that? Benai or Darren?
I think, Vinay can add. I'm just going to think.
Sorry, I don't want to pick on Benai all the time. We can all have a go at it. Yeah.
For sure, Mark. The environment is becoming very competitive. Let's not shy away. And with all that is happening, especially from a fiscal perspective, with all the challenges that you are having under the BEPS project, the OECD and the EU, and the OECD countries pressing on IFCs with the global minimum tax, and these are factors for sure that are impacting to some extent negatively on many IFC, not only on Mauritius. Yeah. But having said that, I think since 2015, when the BEPS project actually started, it was a wake-up call for many IFCs that whatever they used to do in terms of business and attracting investment is something that is not going to work anymore. And this is where the concept of substance actually kick in. And I have to say, it's not because I'm a Mauritian, but I have to say that Mauritius has done very well so far in terms of adhering to all the guidelines and the principle that has been established under the OECD model and the BEPS. And this is why we see, if you want to do business in Mauritius, you need to have that substance and all that actually comes in. And it is going to definitely impact on the competitiveness, but if we have a level playing field from an IFC perspective, I would say, if that applies to all, I think what we have mentioned in terms of the ease of doing business is really going to impact, is way on the balance. Because as Xavier Lenville mentioned and elaborated on that, we have all the attributes of doing business very easily in Mauritius. And it's very easy, nice to live in Mauritius, nice to do business in Mauritius. The regulators are fine. They don't abuse power that they have. So all the elements are there, Mark. Yeah.
Quite straightforward.
I just want to add, for us, the way we see it is the Mauritius IFC to be complementary to other IFCs like DIFC, which is formidable for that matter. Why? Because Mauritius has numerous bilateral agreements, especially with African countries. We got about 43 IVPAs and over 44 DTAs across the world. But more recently also you will find that Mauritius has ratified and it's in operation the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is something substantial for structuring investment into the African continent. But moreover, we on April last year, Mauritius, the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation and Partnership Agreement with India came into force as well. So that gives us a preferential entry to the Indian market as well, a protected entry there as well. And also the Mauritius-China Free Trade Agreement came into place as well. True. So certainly, adding to that, we have the EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement with Europe, with UK, and we have AGUA with the USA. So Mauritius, in effect, has preferential access to 70% of the world market So this, for me, is really an asset that not many country, not many IFC, not many jurisdiction has to put forward. And I think that's where I say that Mauritius could be complementary to other IFCs in the world, where they could have the main operations in the jurisdiction where they are domiciled, but then have alternative operations from Mauritius to access these markets in a more efficient and effective way from Mauritius.
And if I may add here, and what Xavier mentioned earlier on was very interesting as well, is the professionalism and the talent pool here. I was indeed very impressed at the amount of chartered accountants available here in this country. And that's also one of the unique points of Mauritius, right? And then that's providing, and the language skills, and then all the things, and I do see great potential for Mauritius industry, financial service industry, as more integrated with European operation from the European investor perspective. And then that's also one of the advantage here.
Yep, that's fantastic. We have a question, I think, that both Kelly and Xavier could answer. This is quite a broad question, but it is, what is the cost of doing business in Mauritius versus Singapore? You know, I don't really... Shenam, that's quite a broad question. You're welcome to narrow it down if you'd like, but I think we've covered quite a lot. I don't know if you want to comment anything on that.
I can start.
Yeah.
And then you can start. So I'll be very honest. Who asked the question?
Shenam.
Shenam. So to Shenam, I would like to say I don't know. I'm very sorry much about Singapore. What I can say is that I know where Mauritius stands, for instance, compared, I've just mentioned it earlier, compared to Luxembourg. And I must say that Mauritius is way, way, way cheaper, or let's say more affordable than Luxembourg. Because obviously the staff costs are lower in Mauritius than in Luxembourg. The cost of living is lower in Mauritius than in Luxembourg. So globally the cost of doing business is lower in Mauritius than in Europe. I guess we are still lower than Luxembourg, than Singapore as well. But I also must say something which is important, because I think transparency is important. Diren has also mentioned this, and we all mentioned this. We want to be completely, fully compliant with EU regulations. Yeah. Because I told this earlier, the blacklisted of Mauritius was a wake-up call for Mauritius. So we have completely upgraded our jurisdiction, and we are going to continue in this direction, which means that compliance cost is higher now in Mauritius, and I don't think this tendency will decrease. I think that the compliance cost is something that the business need to integrate and to do business in a good way, compliant with international best practices. Yeah. Costs a little bit of money, and that we need to integrate this when doing business. So I wouldn't say it is cheap of doing business in Mauritius, because we want to be fully compliant. So we are doing business properly. So it costs a little bit of money, and we are doing it right with the right talent of people, skilled people, etc. But we are still much more affordable than Luxembourg, and I think obviously than Singapore as well. So Kelly, if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I share many years experience in Singapore, and also for Intertrust, we cover all the jurisdiction mentioned. So then I have a little bit more insight on the cost side. Singapore and Mauritius, very competitive in terms of cost, in terms of many ways of doing things, and probably also because we're both islands. And then it's small size, but also very much focusing on financial service industry for years. However, I see clients using these two jurisdictions at the same time. So that's not pure competition at all, again, as complementary to each other, simply because Singapore is the center for APAC, Asia, and then where, when we talk about integrated operation with Europe, because of time difference, because of the things, and Singapore is having less less than Mauritius in this way. So it's very much about, to who this is more interesting and which jurisdiction is more interesting. Pure cost comparison is not even a story because very much the need comes first, then after the cost.
Yeah.
So otherwise it's not making sense.
Great. I agree with that. All right, so I'm going to ask you a quick fire question, if that's good. You guys ready for quick fire questions? All right, so I'm going to ask each of you. We can just go straight down the line. We'll start with you, Zoe, if that's fine. Can you please tell me the 3 favorite things you like to do in Mauritius?
Yeah.
Quick fire. We don't
Yeah, but I didn't know you. Okay, to think about this. Sorry. So yeah, I like swimming very much. Swimming and in the sea. I like also the nature in Mauritius, so hiking in the nature. And I also like the multicultural Mauritius, so we have some pretty good food and from all over the world. So eating Mauritian street food or nice restaurant. Yeah. This is the 3 things I like to do in Mauritius, amongst others as well.
That sounds good. Benai.
We'll end up saying the same things, but just to be a bit different, yes, street food is something that of a passion for me. I mean, my size says it all, so... But other than that, I do like Mauritius, hiking in Mauritius, the mountains, the volcanic scenery in the middle, and then the beach on the coast. I think that's a very good mix to have. And certainly, if you look at Mauritius, today we got about close to 20 golf courses designed by legends in the golf.
Absolutely.
In the golf sports, like Ernie Els, Ben Langer, and so on, designing golf course in Mauritius. And I think even if you don't play good golf, just walking there and enjoying the scenery, that's a fantastic experience. So whenever you have time, always go and try, especially if you go to yourself, you got an island with a 18-hole golf course on there.
You do.
So certainly you have to try these.
For me, Mark, it's a dream actually to live by the sea, by the beach, and I think this is very expensive, unfortunately. But of course, what I really like is to go to the beaches and enjoy the early walk.
What's your favorite beach?
I would say Peribea.
Peribea.
Yeah.
Oof, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah. And of course, Indian food.
Yeah.
Original, not the Mauritian one.
Not the Mauritian, you want the original Indian food. Okay, great. Kelly.
Right, swimming for sure on the beach and the sunshine, absolutely. And then also the outdoor possibilities and opportunities for kids. And then, I think that's a very good quality family time as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've been here just shy of 3 years now, and I feel like I've gone back sort of 20 years from what we'd come out of in South Africa, and our kids are so enjoying a lifestyle that is unparalleled. It really is an incredible place. But the 3 things I like to do is go surfing, surfing, and surfing. So thank you very much.
3 different types.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Not surfing the internet, come on. All right, so look, it's time for us to bring this to a close. If you're watching and you'd like to know more about this topic, please send through your request to dtos@dtos-mu.com. Thank you again to our panelists for taking the time for your valuable insight today. We really, really appreciate it. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram if you want to get to know more about the DTOS culture. And from all of us at the DTOS News Desk, that is a wrap on Webinar Wednesday. My name is Mark Morell, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.